been a while, but I'm back, and we're going to be talking about Courage and Honor, the 5th book in the Ultramarines series. Now, I already talked about the Chapters Due, which is the 6th book in the series, and the Killing Ground, which is the 3rd book in the series. So if you're trying to look at my reviews in order, it might be a little bit confusing, so don't. But I get them in whatever order I randomly find them in the bookstore. So anyway, just to catch you up on what's been going on, these stories are based on a character called Uriel Ventress, who starts off as an Ultramarine captain of the 4th Company. So due to his actions in a previous war which involved him breaking the rules of the Codex in order to win, he and his close friend Pausanias, who was a sergeant of the 4th Company, try to earn back their honor by going into the Eye of Terror and fighting off the Legions of Chaos. And they're in this room for quite some time, causing a lot of trouble for the Forces of Chaos, but then they eventually escape. And all those events happen in the Ultramarines omnibus. And after they escape, that's where we get into the events of the book The Killing Ground, in which they're trying to get back into contact with the Ultramarines and prove that they're not corrupted by the Forces of Chaos. So after being tested by the Grey Knights to see if their souls were corrupted, they're able to rejoin the Ultramarines, but as we'll see in this book, there's still a few more tests they need to take. Now what turns out to be a pretty big change in this book throughout the series is that in the series, we've always followed Uriel Ventress and the Sergeant Pausanias, who was his close friend. But in this one, Uriel was on his own. See, in the previous books, Pausanias had his hand cut off, and it was replaced by corrupted technology, which was removed. So the Ultramarines are being extra careful to make sure that he is completely uncorrupted. And when they're doing that, Uriel is trying to reinsert himself as a captain of the 4th Company. And that is one of the main conflicts we're going to run into. So let's go into what exactly this book's about. In his first mission as returning captain of the 4th Company, he's sent to a planet of Pavonis. I may have been gone for a while, but I still haven't fixed that problem with being able to pronounce a lot of these words. And while they're on this planet, they find some Tau scouts. And you soon find out that the Tau have been in talks with the leader of this planet. And they're trying to take over in a more diplomatic kind of way. Now, of course, they do this in a guise that there's going to be some sort of equality between the humans on this planet and the Tau Empire, but the Tau that's just going to take over. That's what they do. And while the entire time they're trying to do it in a more diplomatic kind of way, they have their forces getting ready for a forceful invasion throughout the planet. They're getting ready to sabotage communications. They're planting their military forces across the planet. Because that's kind of how the Tau operate. If talks don't fail, they're already going to be ready to take over the planet through force. And of course, the entire time while they're going to try to take it over by force, they're still going to try to talk you into surrendering. So either way, they're forcing you to do it. They just don't want to make it look like they're trying to force you to do it. And this is where the second main conflict comes from. The Planetary Defense Force and the 1 company of Ultramarines trying to fight off this invasion, which has them vastly outnumbered. But we do have a little bit of a flashback story on Uriel Ventress and Pausanias on whether or not they really learned their lesson from the actions they took way early in the series. Now, while a lot of people complain that the Ultramarines are very strict by the book, and it leaves them off to be somewhat boring characters, or just too much Boy Scouts when they're always following the rules, the conversation Uriel Ventress and Pausanias have with the chief librarian of the Ultramarines, Tigurius, really does explain why it's important that the Ultramarines follow the rules. And even though the actions that Uriel took in order to win that one war way early in the series that got him in trouble actually worked, it's not so much a matter of them going maverick and breaking the rules and just being bad boys, it's what it represents. And how ultimately it did make Uriel seem like a weak captain, somebody who was dependent upon to command an entire company of Space Marines. And that's the part of the book that I like. I like those kind of conversations of what it means to be a Space Marine, why Space Marines do what they do. And it did clear up a few of those annoying complaints about why they're punishing Uriel and Pausanias when they won the war. But honestly, I would have preferred a lot more of that kind of conflict. Because the conflict's dealing with Uriel on the actions he takes and the consequences he has to deal with as a captain of the Ultramarines. That's where I think the story shines. The other story, dealing with the Tau invasion, that just felt like a plot device trying to force Uriel to grow as a proper captain of the Ultramarines. So for me, it felt like it kind of dragged on a little bit when they're going through all the other side stories and subplots about the war, about the government, about the PDF force, when the most interesting part is about Uriel's growth. And that takes up a much smaller part of the story. I like the conflict he had with Tigurius in that conversation. I like the conflict he has with a character I forget to mention earlier, whose name I'm completely going to butcher right now, Lurchus, who's a sergeant for the 4th Company who temporarily took over for Uriel while he was gone. This felt a lot more real, in a manner that Lurch just wanted to stay in command of the 4th Company. He had a lot of respect for Uriel, and didn't really condemn him for the actions he took early in the series. But after feeling a taste of command, he had a lot of trouble giving it up. And the conflict he had with Urius was a very believable and a very good one. And the way Uriel came over that, not really being sympathetic, but just telling him to get over it. I thought it was a great way to finish that. So I know I said I liked everything about Uriel's growth in this book. It does hurt a little bit by not having Pausanias there, because we've been with him throughout the entire journey. It just felt like we were missing a friend on this road trip. And while the side stories based on the PDF Force, the government, and the civilians on this planet felt like it could have been a good story on its own, but it didn't mix well with the story of the Ultramarines. And the Tau, although really I haven't really read many books with the Tau, and the one I did review, well, let's not talk about that right now. And this is, of course, just my opinion, but I don't really find them to be very compelling enemies. Even though they are tearing through this planet, I find them more boring than the Ultramarines. So having what I consider to be a boring army in the Tau, and what many people consider the Ultramarines to be, very boring in the Space Marines, combining those two together, it's pretty tough to come up with something really fun. But fortunately, Graham McNeil, he's not a bad writer. So this book doesn't really do anything bad, but there's nothing in this book that really excites. So if you're a fan of the Ultramarine series, and if you already read the other books previous to this wouldn't be a bad read. If you just want to see how Uriel takes over the company again. But if you haven't read the series, and or you're not really a fan of the Ultramarines, this one isn't going to change your mind. But for now, I'm done with the Ultramarines. Next time, I'm going to be reviewing the Space Wolf series. And no, it's not going to start with the Omnibus. I'm sorry, I couldn't find it. But anyway, but till then, that's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth.